What if I told you there is a handwritten copy of the book of Isaiah that existed centuries before Jesus was born, and it describes his suffering, rejection, death, and burial in striking detail? Not written after the fact, not edited by Christians, but preserved in a cave for over 2,000 years. A Bedouin shepherd, searching for a stray goat in the Judean wilderness, stumbles upon a narrow cave opening near the Dead Sea. Inside, he finds clay jars, sealed, untouched, buried in silence. He breaks one open. Inside lies a scroll wrapped in linen, its surface marked by centuries of dust, but its Hebrew letters still sharp and black. This is 1947. No scholars, no churchmen, no agenda. Just a boy in a cave. That scroll is the Great Isaiah Scroll. Word spreads quickly. Dealers in Bethlehem get their hands on the scrolls. Fragments are shown to Archbishop Samuel of the Syrian Orthodox Church, who recognizes their age but not their full importance. Soon, American scholar John Trevor photographs the Isaiah Scroll in a dim Jerusalem monastery. His images, sent to experts across the Atlantic, leave no doubt. This is the oldest, most complete copy of Isaiah ever seen. 17 leather sheets, stitched together, stretching over 24 feet long. Every chapter, every line, preserved. Within months, archaeologists from the American Schools of Oriental Research, Roland DeVoe, G. Lancaster Harding, traced the find back to Cave 1 at Qumran. They document the jars, the cave's unique layers, the context. The chain of custody is unbroken, from the Bedouins' hands to dealers to scholars to the Israel Museum's Shrine of the Book, where the scroll rests today. Every step is recorded, every transition is photographed, cataloged, and preserved. No gap for invention, no window for Christian tampering. This scroll is not a product of the church. It is a relic from the Jewish past, sealed away centuries before Christianity or Islam. The evidence is public, the photos are real, the find is genuine. The Great Isaiah Scroll stands as a silent witness, waiting to be read. How do you prove a prophecy was not written after the fact? You test the parchment, you study the handwriting, you ask the toughest scientific questions, and you let the evidence speak. That is exactly what happened with the Great Isaiah Scroll. Not in secret, not behind closed doors, but in the world's top laboratories: Arizona, Zurich, Tucson. 3 independent teams, 3 sets of samples, 3 times the results came back the same. The parchment dates to around 125 BC. The margin of error was just a few decades. Not a single test places it anywhere near the time of Jesus, let alone after. But science did not stop with carbon dating. Paleographers, experts in ancient handwriting, scrutinized every letter. The scroll script matches the Hasmonean bookhand, a style used in Judea between 150 BC and 100 BC. The rounded aleph, the open nun, the distinctive shin. These are not guesses. They are benchmarks compared with dated documents from the same era. Every stroke on the parchment confirms it. Late 2nd century BC. Why does this matter? Because it locks Isaiah 53 into history, long before the Gospels, long before anyone could claim Jesus fulfilled these words. There was no chance for Christian editing, no possibility of rewriting prophecy to fit later events. The scroll was sealed in a cave, untouched, centuries before Jesus of Nazareth walked the earth. The science is public. The results are published. The date is fixed. Isaiah 53 was there waiting, before the story of Jesus even began. He was despised and rejected by men. That is how Isaiah chapter 53 begins its portrait of the servant, written centuries before Christianity, sealed in the Great Isaiah Scroll. Not honored, not welcomed, not believed. The scroll says he was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. That is the exact wording from the scroll still visible on its ancient parchment. Not a later Christian twist, not a church invention, but a line that echoes straight into the New Testament. John chapter 1 verse 11 says, "He came to his own and his own people did not receive him." The same pattern, the same heartbreak. But Isaiah does not stop at rejection. The next shot comes in verse 5. He was pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed. Pierced, crushed, wounded, not for his own wrongs, but for others. This is not just suffering, it is substitution. The servant takes the blow meant for someone else. He carries pain that does not belong to him. The New Testament picks up these words and runs with them. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 24 says, "He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, and by his wounds you have been healed." The connection is direct, unmistakable. Isaiah's servant is not just suffering. He is suffering for others, bearing their guilt, offering healing through his pain. This is the heart of Christian atonement. One man, innocent, bearing the penalty for many. Some Jewish voices say the servant is Israel itself, collective, not individual. But the scroll's language is personal. He was pierced, he was crushed. By his wounds we are healed. Singular, specific, not a nation but a person. And in the Gospels, Jesus is pierced in his hands, his feet, and his side on a Roman cross. Not just a coincidence, but a convergence of prophecy and history. Long before Jesus, long before the New Testament, Isaiah chapter 53 was already there, waiting. The scroll does not explain it away. It simply stands as a witness, rejected, wounded, yet somehow, through those wounds, bringing healing to others. What do you do with that? He was silent. That's what the scroll says. The scroll says he was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shears is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Isaiah 53 verse 7, written centuries before Jesus, sealed in a cave by hands that never heard of Nazareth or Galilee. But open the Gospels and you find the same scene. Jesus stands before Pilate. Accusers shout. Witnesses twist his words. And yet no defense, no protest. Matthew records that Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor. Why would an innocent man stay silent? Why refuse to answer when a single word could save his life? The scroll gives the answer. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, not dragged, not driven, led. Voluntary, willing. Substitution, not accident. But Isaiah goes further. He was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death. Who ends up with the wicked? Criminals. Who ends up with the rich? Kings, counselors, men of means. Jesus was crucified between two criminals, numbered with transgressors, as Mark 15 verse 28 says. Yet when the sun set, it was not the criminal's grave that held him. Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy member of the council, asked Pilate for the body. He wrapped Jesus in linen and laid him in his own new tomb, cut from rock and never used, buried with the rich, just as Isaiah wrote. 3 details. Silence before accusers, numbered with transgressors, buried with the rich, each one unlikely, each one written down centuries before. All of them converge in a single day, in a single man. Not vague, not general, not myth. Specific, historical, public. That is the pattern the scroll lays out. And that is the pattern the Gospels record. If this is coincidence, it is a stack of them, each one harder to explain away. If it is prophecy, it is a challenge. What do you do with it? Open the great Isaiah scroll to chapter 53. The words are there, unchanged for over 2,000 years. Every phrase, he was pierced for our transgressions. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, matches the Masoretic Hebrew Bible almost exactly. No verses were added, none are missing. Scholars have compared the Hebrew of the scroll line by line, finding only minor spelling variants. There is no evidence of Christian additions. The text stands as it did centuries before the Gospels appeared, yet the meaning splits along tradition. Jewish commentators from Targum Jonathan to Rashi read the servant as Israel, a nation suffering, misunderstood, enduring exile. Rashi writes that the prophet speaks of the people of Israel, despised among the nations. The Targum retells Isaiah 53 as Israel's pain and hope, not a Messiah. Christian readers focus on the singular pronouns. He was pierced. He bore our sins, arguing for one man, not a nation. The debate is interpretation, not forgery. The scroll remains unchanged, silent between two readings. Outside the circle of faith, two ancient voices confirm what prophecy and gospel claim. Tacitus, a Roman senator and historian, writes in his annals that Christus, the origin of the Christian name, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilatus. Tacitus, writing around 115 AD, had no sympathy for Christians. His account is blunt, official, and detached. Yet he records the crucifixion of Jesus under Pilate, aligning Roman record with the words of Isaiah. He was pierced for our transgressions. Josephus, a Jewish historian, adds another layer. In Antiquities, he notes, Pilate condemned him to the cross. Josephus, no follower of Jesus, writes from a Jewish perspective under Roman rule. Even with later edits, the core remains. Jesus lived, was executed by Pilate, and sparked a movement. Three strands, prophecy, gospel, and secular history, converge on a single event. You hold the evidence in your hands. Words from Isaiah were written centuries before Jesus. Not coincidence, not conspiracy. Fact. He was pierced for our transgressions. Now the question is yours. Who is this servant? If it truly points to Jesus, what will you do with him? Read, compare, decide.